first things you did after launching your campaign was to issue an apology to the LGBTQ community about your past stances and statements on gay rights. After the Trump administration's rollbacks of civil rights protections for many in that community.
I want to know what Chuck Todd meant by rollback of LGBTQ protections, so let's check this out. So the Health and Human Services Department issued a proposal rule Friday that would end an Obama-era policy that prohibited healthcare providers from discriminating against patients based on their gender identity. Now, this is untrue. All they did was remove the classification of transgender. They said you have to identify as your biological sex. And they're saying that's removing protections for transgender people, but it's not. You're still protected under sex classification. So transgender people will still be protected. This is only going to affect sex change operation type procedures or therapies. That's it. But I wanted to find, was there more that Chuck Todd meant? Because he wasn't specific, but there was 15 other ones I found on this site. I'll go over these 15 points at the end of this video for anybody who wants to see it. But for now, I want to focus on Tulsi Gabbard.
Why should voters in that community, or voters that care about this issue in general, trust you now?
Let me say that there is no one in our government at any level who has the right to tell any American who they should be allowed to love or who they should be allowed to marry.
She made two errors here, and these are common errors, so I don't want to come down too hard on her. But before Obama and the Democrats made gay marriage legal, you could still love whoever you want to love. That didn't make loving people legal. Like, people were still in homosexual relationships before that. So to say that somebody was preventing people from quote unquote loving whoever they wanted to love, that is false. And you could still marry people. You just didn't have the government recognizing it. You could stand in front of somebody and have them declare you married. Nobody was breaking into the chapel and preventing that. Nobody was breaking into your home and separating a same-sex couple. The only thing that changed is the government decided to legally recognize it. And maybe that's what she meant. Okay. But the second error she made is she says nobody has the right to tell you who you can love and who you can't love. If we're assuming she means legally, then she thinks she has the right to tell you who you can love and who you can't love, because she does not approve of polygamous marriages. She does not approve of bestiality marriages. She does not approve of underage marriages. She's disapproving of a lot of marriages. So she is telling people you can't do that. She can have whatever position she wants, but these arguments are not true. And maybe on the first one, she meant legally. Okay, fine. But the second one is not true. Chuck Todd just basically shamed her, said, you said these things 50 years ago. How can we trust you anymore? Okay, I guess I'll just bow down to and submit to the talking points, I guess. Like, that's what she did. And they're wrong talking points, by the way. I mean, that doesn't prove that gay marriage is wrong, but those talking points are wrong. Literally incorrect.
My record in Congress for over 6 years shows my commitment to fighting for LGBTQ equality. I serve on the Equality Caucus and recently voted for passage of the Equality Act.
Let's go through what the Equality Act is. This is from the Heritage Foundation. The original one was in 1964. Ensured that African Americans had equal access to public accommodations and material goods. That's great. They wanted to add LGBT to the Equality Act. The Equality Act would force employers and workers to conform to new sexual norms or else lose their businesses and jobs. You're forcing individual privately owned businesses to do things a certain way. That is a violation of their rights. You don't have a right to force somebody to hire you. I'm talking about moral rights now. I mean, the Democrats' version of rights is skewed. They want to force you to do things the way they envision the way you should do it, based on their beliefs. Conservatives just want to leave you alone, just to say, okay, you believe in LGBT, you do your thing. I'll leave you alone. You want to hire all gay people in your gay bar? Go do that. I'm not going to bother you. Liberals say, no, you want to run your business this way? No, you got to run it the way we say to run it. That's the way liberals do it. It's a totalitarian mentality. So they give the example of the Colorado baker, Jack Phillips. He didn't want to bake a cake for a gay wedding, and then somebody asked him to bake a cake for a gender transition celebration cake. They obviously were targeting him. They give another example here. This high school teacher, he was dismissed because of the school's anti-discrimination policy. The student wanted to be called a masculine name, but he didn't want to. And he just wanted to avoid it altogether. He didn't want to use any pronouns, but that was not good enough, and the school board fired him. So people lose their jobs over this kind of stuff. This is another example. The Equality Act would force hospitals and insurers to provide and pay for these therapies against their moral and medical objections. They're forcing insurance companies and hospitals to pay for transition surgeries and hormone drugs when these medical professionals don't think that's a good thing. I mean, there's a whole organization that states this in very convincing case to me at the American College of Pediatricians. This is a great article, and I'll link it in the comments, but they basically say that sexuality is determined by your genitals and your DNA, and they say puberty blockers are dangerous, sex change operation is dangerous, and people that go down that road commit suicide 20 times as much as people who don't. So they're saying if you tell people this is fine, this is good, you're basically making it 20 times more likely they're going to kill themselves. And they're saying this is child abuse. That's what they're saying, because most of the kids that think they're the opposite gender, they grow out of it. Some hospitals didn't want to perform hysterectomies on healthy women to become male. They were sued for that. So Tulsi Gabbard wants to force all these people that believe this way, you have to do these surgeries and you have to prescribe these hormone drugs. You could lose custody of your kids because you don't support them taking the hormone pills. And this is one that I didn't realize when I first started looking at this. This is a bad thing for women. This is the same criticism I've seen of the Equal Rights Amendment, which is, I won't go too much into it, but basically it wants to remove the classification of women and men in the Constitution. It's an amendment to the Constitution that treats men and women the same. But the criticism of that, and why a lot of women didn't want that, is because they said, we are afraid we're going to lose our own bathroom. We want our own bathroom. We are afraid we're going to be enrolled in selective service. We don't want all sports teams playing together. We want a female and a male. And the Equal Rights Amendment would erase all distinctions. That's what some of the fears are. And it's the same with this Equality Act here. They're saying it would open up sex-specific facilities like bathrooms to members of the opposite sex and make sexual assaults more common, which it definitely would.
Maybe many people in this country can relate to the fact that I grew up in a socially conservative home, held views when I was very young that I no longer hold today.
I mean, most people, when she was young, didn't believe in gay marriage and didn't believe that we should encourage sex change operations. I mean, vast majority, probably over 95% on both. An agenda, a marketing agenda to sell this stuff to the American public. She's a product of the culture, and she's saying, well, I changed, I evolved, she thinks she progressed, but she devolved, in my opinion. She changed from a correct view, and did you notice that? She didn't just include homosexuality in that, she included social issues. She was socially conservative, which means not only gay marriage, but more importantly, abortion. So she was pro-life, and now she's pro-choice. How do you go from that? If you believe that it's a human life in the womb, at some point, she went to not believing it's a human life. How does that transition happen? Which so many of the things she said in this one little clip here, in this one answer, show me she's not a critical thinking person, because not much of what she said here makes sense.
I've served with LGBTQ service members, both in training and deployed downrange. I know that they would give their life for me, and I would give my life for them.
Again, with a comment that makes no sense at all. I mean, just because you serve with somebody who is homosexual and you would die for them and they would die for you, and you're on the same side in a war and you're fighting together and you have the camaraderie, that's great. That does not mean their activity is moral or good, or as a society we should support it. I mean, do you think that you might have served with a shoplifter, Tulsi, in the war, and they would have died for you and you would have died for them? Probably so. Does that mean that we should support shoplifting and shoplifting is a good thing? Of course not. So this is another failed argument on her part, and she can have whatever opinion she wants, but I'm just saying these arguments she's presenting are not good arguments. These are bad arguments, several in one statement. It shows me she has a lack of critical thinking skills. She's just going with the flow. We don't want somebody that's just going with the flow. We want somebody who stands on the truth.
It is this commitment that I'll carry through as President of the United States, recognizing that there are still people who are facing discrimination in the workplace, still people who are unable to find a home for their families. It is this kind of discrimination that we need to address.
So about the housing discrimination, there was several articles that said, oh yeah, homeless shelters are discriminating against transgender females, which would be a biological man who identifies as a woman. And there's a very good reason for this. There was homeless women that were being assaulted by these transgender women. Tulsi, you are putting desires of biological men identifying as women above biological women who are being assaulted by some of this agenda. This is not theory or it might happen or it could happen. It already is happening without the Equal Rights Amendment, without the Equality Act. And we see it happening. Tulsi, you're not standing up for women. You're standing up for an ideology, one that hurts women.
Discrimination that we need to address.
But it's not enough. It's
Thank
not
you,
enough.
Congresswoman
If I can add to this,
Gabbard.
it's very important.
30
because
seconds,
this is not
Senator.
enough. Look.
And then super woke Cory Booker comes in to save the day, to berate her, to tell her, no, that's not good enough. She did everything she could possibly do. Her answer there was very extreme, in my opinion. When you understand all the issues and the effect this will have on women, the effect this will have on the liberty of businesses and hospitals, this was a very extreme answer, even though she said it in a very calm fashion. But Cory Booker comes in and says, nope, not enough, not good enough, Tulsi. And he's shaming her because he's the super woke one. Tulsi, it'll never be enough. Never be enough for these people. The sooner you realize it, the better. So we already went over number one at the beginning of the video. The other big one that most people know about is Trump not allowing transgender people in the military, and that was at the advice of military commanders. They said this is a distraction. This is not good for our effectiveness in a potential battle. So Trump said, yes, I agree. Let's do it. That's it. And they want to claim, oh, you're being discriminatory. Well, yes, we are being discriminatory based on effectiveness in military duty. And they're discriminatory based on all kinds of things, based on age, weight, based on flat feet. You can even be disqualified based on that. And so, yes, they're discriminatory, and they should be discriminatory. So those two major ones don't hold any water. The rest of them were mostly the Trump administration saying that if we contract you, we're not going to force you to hire LGBT people if you don't want to. So that a lot of these were about government paying private contractors, and Trump wants to allow private contractors to hire and fire as they please. That was most of these. There's a few silly ones. I'll go over. This one's funny. Betsy DeVos and the Department of Education refused to protect transgender students from bullying and harassment. This is so silly. All they did was say, if you're a biological boy, you can't go in the bathroom with a biological girl. And then this website's spinning it to say they're not protecting transgender students from bullying and harassment because they're not allowing them to go in the bathroom that is opposite of their biological sex. That means you're not protecting them from bullying and harassment? What about protecting girls from boys pretending to be girls and sexually assaulting them? Because that does happen. That's another one. This is about prisons. It's about, this is so silly. This is something that happened in Europe. A biological man identified as a woman. He went to the women's prison and then he sexually assaulted four of the female prisoners. It's like, get a clue here. So I guess Obama era policy had something about that. Another employment one, another bathroom one. Now they're removing sexual orientation and gender identity from the census survey. And the NBC News title, LGBTQ Americans won't be counted in the 2020 U.S. Census after all. They will be counted, just not for those criteria. What a dishonest headline. This one was saying that if you have HIV, you can't be in the military. This has nothing to do with gay or transgender. This is HIV. I don't know why they put this under a classification of LGBT. But this headline is funny too. How Trump's deploy or get out policy could see people with HIV kicked out of military for no reason. HIV is the reason. Newsweek. Oh my goodness. Another one about business rights. Trump administration backs Baker. So, this is all about business rights. Let's finish out this list. The Trump White House has yet to appoint an LGBTQ liaison. Okay. Now, not only stuff he did, but now it's something he didn't do. Okay. The Trump White House refused to acknowledge Pride Month for a second year in a row. Can you blame him? Honestly, the Pride celebration has gotten so out of hand. We got naked men walking down the street in front of little kids. Maybe he doesn't want to be associated with that. But look at this one. Trump administration launches global effort to end criminalization of homosexuality. This is great. I'm somebody that disagrees with gay marriage, and I think homosexuality is bad for people and shouldn't be encouraged. But I don't want them killed. I don't want them attacked and assaulted. I respect their right to choose what they want to choose. Trump administration launches global effort to end criminalization of homosexuality. 8 countries where it's illegal to be gay. And liberals are never critical of that. So they want to complain about all these little nuanced things that have 2 sides to the story. And most of the time is liberals trying to force average citizens to do things against their conscience. When it comes to actually protecting gay people from death, from being imprisoned, where are liberals? Where are they? That's why I can't take them seriously on this.